Hi everybody, and welcome to the Rubbin' Is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show, brought to you by FantasyDonks.com, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know to start playing daily fantasy sports. I'm Sean Big Papa Williams.
I'm Jamie Learjet Lear.
And we'll be bringing you our coverage of the Coke Zero 400 powered by Coca-Cola. Little much on the Coca-Colas there. At Daytona International Speedway this week. Happy 4th of July to everybody out there. We're giving you a special 4th of July broadcast before we go watch the fireworks. And we got
American Power.
Right, and the Batman America style, along with the July 4th Royals hat. So, so we're representing our national pride today.
Powered since 1776. I bet you can't read that, but that's what it says.
And with that done, before we get into breaking down the Coca-Cola's, the Coke Zero 400, let's have Lear recap last week's race for us.
All right, man. Sonoma Raceway, the old road course race. Very interesting race, but old Rowdy, Kyle Busch, taking it home.
Yep.
I figured he would probably end up getting a win here sometime soon. Stomping at the bit, trying to get back into the chase to get in the cup. So, but last week, one of the drivers I recommended was Dale Earnhardt Jr. He started 20th and finished the race 7th and scored a combined total of 59.5 points. And he was only 12.1% owned in the lug nut, so pretty low end ownage there on a big name guy. And I know it costs a lot of money, but he definitely brought it last week for sure.
A funny story is though that the winning team didn't have Junior.
Yeah,
the winning team was just Boyer, who was 52% owned, Kurt Busch 26. Austin Dillon at 4.6% owned. That's the key for his team. He put up 52.75 points. Yeah. Casey Kane put up 63.75. And Paul Menard at 12% owned put up 49.75. Yeah, and that was the winning. That was the winning lineup in the lug nut. So,
but yeah, I mean, we were both on the Boyer train too last week. Guy started 6th, finished 3rd. Very good road racer. He had a good race last week too. Also, Matt Kenseth, he was my going to the garage guy last week, and he started 3rd and finished the race 21st. Finished the day with a negative 5.5 points, and he was 7.8% owned. So, I'm hoping you took my advice and stayed away from the Matt Kenseth train last week.
So these negative points in NASCAR just kill your team.
Oh yeah.
And the second you get one, basically you're out of the money. It's just done.
Yeah. And then both of us, unfortunately, were on the AJ Allmendinger, the Dinger train.
Yeah, the Dinger dinged us, didn't he?
Oh, man, he stung us big time. He started 1st, finished the race 37th. He was 56.2% owned.
If you somehow faded him, you were great because he was negative 30.5 points.
Yeah. So he definitely, he was good price point, but obviously not going to help you in that fashion. So, and then one of my other drivers, Carl Edwards, definitely stung me. He started the race 14th, finished 40th, and he was 25% owned. And finished with a negative 22 points. So.
And as you all know, I had Truex who wrecked and finished terribly as well. So, not necessarily a great week for me, NASCAR-wise. The streak of awfulness continues. Yeah. Hopefully, I can get that turned around this week with the race at Daytona. That would be a great thing to have happen for my bankroll.
But before we get into that, real quick, I just want to do the worst play of the week was the guy you just mentioned, Martin Truex Jr. In the 78 Furniture Row car. He started 12th, finished the race in 42nd due to a crash. So only 31 laps completed throughout the 110 laps for the entire race. Scoring a negative 30.75 points, and he was 31% owned at a price point of $11,200.
Yeah.
Best play of the week, Casey Kane, the old number 5 farmer's car. Casey Kane started 26th, finished race 8th, scored 63.75 points. Only 14.5% owned last week. And he was at a good price point of $10,700. So I wish we were on the Casey Kane train.
And I've heard several people talking about this week about how they want to be on the Casey Kane train again for Daytona this week.
Yeah.
But now that we got the best and worst of last week, and you saw that we had a couple of misses ourselves, let's get into the Coke Zero 400 powered by Coca-Cola at Daytona International Speedway. Before we get into the track breakdown, we know that this is the track where we always have the big one because it's restrictor plate racing. 10 minutes into the first practice. That's right, 10 minutes into the first practice. We already had one of the big ones. I usually would say there's probably going to be 2 or 3 in the regular race as well.
I heard Matt Kenseth was the starter of all that, being a little aggressive there. So
well, yeah, but he's the only one that's not in a backup car that got tangled up in the mess. That multi-car pileup has 8 drivers now in backup cars, including all of the Joe Gibbs racing team except for Kenseth, who started the wreck.
I'm sorry, it wasn't Matt Kenseth. It was Keselowski.
Yes, it was Keselowski.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Busch, Carl Edwards, Denny Hamlin, along with Truex Jr., McMurray, Bain, Newman, and Sam Hornish Jr. are all in backup cars this week.
Yeah.
Thanks to that wreck. And that happened at least with a day to get your backup car ready to go to practice last night, and then they're going to run qualifying later this afternoon. Like any of those guys are still in place since they haven't qualified yet.
And I think Kurt Busch a couple weeks ago basically defunct that for us because we were off of that based off his starting position because he was going into a backup car.
Mm-hmm.
But
that was also a rain shortened race.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to be an issue here in Daytona.
But the guy was up front too, so and he started all the way in the back. So, but with it being a restrictor plate racing, a little different as far as strategy goes. But yeah.
All right, Lear, give us the track breakdown.
So, excuse me. I get so excited I get caught up there. We're racing this week the Coke Zero 400 at Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida. Man,
I wish it was still the Firecracker 400.
I know, man. It would make it to a little more American pride on that, but whatever. Got to take the money from the sponsors, right?
Right. I guess. I mean, Coca-Cola has their name in the title twice. Like they're going after it hard.
By the way, this show is brought to you by FantasyDonks.com.
Nice.
So it is a tri-oval track. It is a restrictor plate racing, so a lot of bumper to bumper throughout the duration of the race. And as far as the turns, there's 31 degree turns, and basically it's huge wrecks like we already talked about. One car gets out of control, then it has a possibility of taking out a whole ton of cars.
Up to 30.
Last year, if you watch the 2014 race, like half the field, I think, finished the race. So it's one of those things where, crossing your fingers that none of your guys are one of those types that are.
We know this track has its ability to be treacherous. After all, this is the same racetrack that put Cole Trickle and Rowdy Burns in the hospital years ago, and Rowdy never got to race again.
Yeah,
so.
But love the reference there.
I thought you'd like that.
But going back to Daytona, last year it was a rain shortened race as well. Eric Amarola was actually the lucky guy that finished first on that. So probably his only win in the NASCAR series. So.
But rain's not an issue this weekend, right? Okay.
So as far as the weather, it's supposed to be 87 degrees. But there is a 40% chance, according to weather.com, that there's a chance for precipitation. So it could be a shortened race, and it weather could come into play too.
I'm guessing it's going to be one of those Florida showers that lasts all of 5 minutes. I mean,
yeah, and that's what they thought last year too, but unfortunately it stuck around, and they NASCAR ended up calling it. So, could could be another rain shortened race this week as well.
Oh, yeah, maybe it could. I'm not too worried about it in Florida. Like, I believe last year was bands of a tropical storm that kept the race. They got it rain shortened there. I don't think there's a tropical storm. I think it's just normal Florida weather. So I think we're okay there. If it is a rain shortened race, I think it's even going to be more true that you want the people up front at the beginning, because those are going to be the people that are in clean air. They usually avoid the big one, and in a rain shortened race, they auto get the win. So, like, I would stick to the high qualifiers. And since qualifying hasn't happened yet when we film this, we're giving you people that ran good at practice or that have a history of running good on this track, and people that we think will win. So make sure when you're setting your lineups today to adjust if there's some terrible qualifying that happens.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little bit on that. NASCAR, if you're listening out there, will you please have qualifying on Fridays? Why are you having them on Saturdays the day before the race?
Well, not even that. It's the late afternoon Saturdays too. I just don't get it.
So please, just for everybody involved, please have qualifying on Fridays. Thank you, Mr. Francis. And then as far as the qualifying today, like Papa just said, take guys that are going to be up front, but also too, one thing I've kind of learned, man, through we've been doing this about a month now, so is you also have to really find that driver that's a really, really good driver, decent price point, but gets a really poor qualifying position. Yeah. Because I've kind of noticed the trend in most of the people that finish first or really high in these contests is they always have at least one person that is starting way in the back. Like last week was Casey Kane. He's one of the main staple drivers, with Hendrick Racing, and he started 26.
Well, and I don't know about you, but on this track, I'm not worried about the people in the very front, and I'm not worried about the people in the very back. It's all the people in the middle. That's where the wreck always happens.
Caught up,
And I just, if you're going to do a super, I think the way to go this weekend is a superstar, a studs duds lineup. Like, I would try to possibly get the top 3 qualifiers or 4, and then put in a really crappy driver that won't lose me points. Yeah. And that may get it done this week. I don't know. The one thing I've learned about NASCAR is it is incredibly difficult to predict. I mean, we do in-depth analysis every week, and like you use the stats and the analysis, and I just, for some reason, the picks I'm making keep crashing over and over again, and they're guys that shouldn't crash, and most of the time it's not even their fault they crash. So
it just proves to you that there are multiple variables that come into play each week.
Well, and with that said, let's go to who we have burning rubber this week and the Who's Burning Rubber segment.
Burning rubber.
All right, I will start off, and my first pick is, as always, Jeff Gordon. No, I'm just messing with you, but Jeff Gordon is on my team at 11,700. He didn't get caught up in the first wreck, but I'm not going to do that to you again. You all know my reasons why I like Jeff Gordon and his retirement.
Well, eventually, man, it's gonna pay off, because you pick him every week. He might actually win a race.
One of these times, I'm going to be absolutely right on that, and it's going to be a fantastic thing when I am. But actually, my pick of the week is instead of Gordon, but he is on my team. You'll see that later. I'm going with Danica Patrick. At 9,200, I think she's a steal price-wise. She just has a history of running well in Daytona. I believe it's a series of top 10 finishes in her last 3 races. I would look for her to qualify up near the front. She was the fastest car in practice 2. She avoided the wreck in practice 1. And she has one of the top 5 best 10 lap averages in both practices. I think that is a huge factor this week. She should be able to run up front. She should be one of the fastest cars. I like her at that price point.
Old Danica Patrick. I've plugged her into a couple of my lineups. I'm not on her as much as you are this week. But no, as far as what the research says in track history here, And she does do pretty well here at Daytona. So
my one concern is that her ownership percentage might be a little high. But,
yeah, just based on her price point.
But then again, a lot of guys tend to fade the woman in NASCAR.
Yeah.
Like so far in this season, we've seen her ownership percentage stay fairly low, even in racetracks like Michigan, where she was.
Yeah.
Has a history of doing well.
So we don't have Big Brother behind us, telling us what we should say or anything like that. But so guys, if you're out there and you need somebody to plug in to your lineup that's going to be at a fairly lower price point, I would be on Danica Patrick.
All right, Lear. With that covered on Danica, who's your first pick of the Burning Rubber segment?
My first pick for Burning Rubber, this guy has just been on fire. He's basically turned into the Martin Truex of about a month or so ago. Martin Truex was finishing high. He was at a decent price point, so on and so forth. But Kurt Busch, man, I am all about the Kurt Busch train. He finished last year third in this race, and he got second last week, and the week before that he won the race. So the guy is on a trend of finishing up in the top five. A lot of good momentum going on over there at the Stewart Haas Automation for Kurt Busch. But like I said, he's just been on fire. And the crazy point is last week he was down. He cost $12,400. This week he's $11,400. So he's down $1,000 in salary. But here's the other thing, which kind of not to get off my pick, but DraftKings has I don't know if you noticed this, but they have altered the salaries for all the racers.
Oh yeah.
So the trend has been Kevin Harvick $14,000, Jimmy Johnson $13,000, Kurt Busch $12,000, so on and so forth. Everybody has gone down. That's been up at the top has gone down in price. Everybody that's been in the middle and the lower have gone up in price. So there's going to be a lot of variables going on with that there.
I think what DraftKings did was try to make everybody more competitive salary because they were having people, teams group at the top together, because essentially what their salary had done was force you into one of four strategies. And if you committed to one of those four strategies and whichever strategy paid off, basically because of the way the salaries were created on DraftKings, everyone was grouped together with the same team, basically, and they were tired of people sharing the prizes. So they've tried to equalize it out. Hopefully that causes more people to have more variations of those teams.
Which would be nice.
Yes. And that'll sort it out on its own.
But sorry, I just have a little bit to wrap up too on Kurt Busch. He started the race last year 40th and finished third. I wish I had him last year. That would have been a crazy amount of points. But he has a career finish here of 18th in 29 attempts. So he's got good history here at Daytona and restrictor plate racing. So I'm all over Kurt Busch this week.
And my next pick is Tony Stewart at 10,300. Good old Tony. He and the Stewart Haas Racing Team, as you can tell from the previous picks, are people we love this week. And they finished 1, 2, 3, 4 in practice 2. They seem to have their cars dialed in for Daytona. I think that makes Tony Stewart a very happy man. I think he, along with Danica, Busch, I think they're all going to be qualifying high. They're all going to be able to run together as a team up front, drafting each other in clean air and staying away from the wreck, which is going to be huge. I actually have zero problems if you want to stack Stewart Haas Racing teams and roll with it that way. I think it's actually a really smart move on your part if you want to go that way. The problem is there might be a lot of people on that same train because of how well they qualify, how well they practice so far.
And I mean, we know Tony Stewart, he hasn't been doing very well, this year. He's been racing for a very, very long time, and now he's a car owner, enjoying the fruits of his labor, of all of his hard work over the years. So mostly he's going out there just because he really enjoys racing. Yeah. And I mean, what else would be better to go to Daytona and on July 4th weekend and take home a victory? But I am not on the Tony Stewart train this week. But I definitely see your point there, and
Well, before we get to your
Good luck
last pick, I also want to also Harvick is also in the mix as part of the Stewart House Racing team.
And he's been. We know how Harvick's been. So.
And once again, I understand why you're not on him. I just at Daytona, give me the cars if I can afford them that are up front that I can avoid the big one. You know, and just hope to God that the big one doesn't happen when those cars are passing the lap traffic.
Yeah.
You know, it's just you kind of have to just roll the dice at Daytona.
And at his price point of $10,300, you know, that's a darn good price point for a driver because, you know, as we've seen, the bottom guys have come up this week, so it's going to be tougher and tougher to fill your lineup with those 5 drivers with some good drivers at their price point. So.
All right, Lear, who's your final pick for the burning rubber segment?
My final pick is a guy that I've kind of liked a little bit, but he hasn't been performing very well. But Ryan Newman, I'm on the Ryan Newman train this week. He's a good restrictor plate racing driver. He has a career finish of 20th in 27 attempts. Needs to qualify low for him to be worth your while this week. I think if he does qualify low, then I'm going to be all over him everywhere. If he qualifies high, I'm definitely going to take that number of entries and shrink that down because I'm not that confident in him having a top 5 finish. But if he, you know, qualifies late, I do have a lot of confidence in him that he has the ability to get some pass differential and have a decent finish, maybe a top 10 finish here at Daytona. But the last time he won a race was 2013 at Indianapolis on July the 28th. So it's
been a couple of years.
Yeah, it's time to for Ryan Newman to get off the schneid and get in the victory lane. And at his price point of $9,700, it's a good price point. And you know, my guess is he's not going to be very highly owned either.
Oh, I know.
So in a GPP, this is the type of guy that is going to separate you from the rest of the field.
It very well could be. Newman could be a separator this week. I don't have a problem with the pick. I understand what you're doing here, and like we said, it's going to come down to where he qualifies for me. And if he qualifies in the right spot, I'll probably put him in a lineup or two. But I think he could be a separator. I think his ownership percentage is probably going to be lower than 13%. And so it's going to be a unique guy that you can gain on. And yeah, I like the pick, Lear. With that said, let's move to the going to the garage segment. Who this week is headed to the garage, a driver you want to avoid at all costs? My first pick is Junior. And I can hear the moans like through the computer, even though you haven't watched this video yet. He's 12,300, and he seems to be everybody's favorite for this weekend's race. He ran good in practice 1. Look, he's 12,300. He's the most expensive driver on the board. Everybody and their brother seems to be on him. That's an easy fade for me.
Yeah.
Auto easy fade. And the funny part of this is when I try to use logic and reasoning for the going to the garage pick, it doesn't pan out. So I'm just throwing all that to the wayside, and I'm just gonna go with my gut, grab my cojones, and say Junior is the driver you want to avoid at all costs. I actually think somehow, like, it's either going to be a pit mistake or something. He's going to get knocked back into the middle of the pack, and he's going to get caught up in the big one. And everybody that has him on their lineup is going to be devastated.
Yeah.
Like, I have that feeling. It's a gut feeling. I have no reason for it other than, but the real reason why I would avoid him is not that he's going to break down, but that he's going to be too highly owned at too high of a price tag, and that's going to mean your lineups are just like everybody else's.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I definitely have been on the Dale train last couple weeks. You know, he's been performing very well. You know, finishing you know, with 50 points here, 60 points here. You know, definitely finishing with a good amount of points. He's also the most expensive driver this week, $12,300. But no, I kind of have that feeling with you too, man. You know, and you've already gone over it, but the point of everybody going to be on that train is something too where, you know, when the train gets too full, what do you want to do? You want to get off the train. So I'm totally in agreement with you.
See, I think what's going to happen, this is part of the reason why I wanted to tell you about Danica, is because I think people are going to try to find the money, put Junior in their lineups, fade Danica, or they'll have Junior and Danica together.
Yeah.
In which case, your Danica's on an island with Tony or whoever you do are going to be unique lineups versus what the chunk of people are going to do. And I think for the most part, people are just going to be all over him, especially he's driving a patriotic design car. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the world's just screaming for Junior to win this race, and I was thinking normal Junior fashion, they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, most popular driver on the circuit, and you know,
we've even seen that in his ownership percentages on tracks he shouldn't be highly owned on.
Yeah,
and much less on a track that he should do well on. I'm fading it. So, Lear, who's your pick to go to the garage?
My pick going to the garage this week is also another Junior, Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. had a horrific week last week. Now, we are talking about different tracks, different situations.
The difference between a road course
and
Daytona
and
just a little bit.
Just, I mean, a tiny bit, nothing crazy, you know. But I don't know. He's been trending down the last couple weeks. I know 3 weeks ago he had a decent race, but it just seems like his momentum is kind of slowed down a little bit. But his price point this week is $11,300. So that's like one of your main staple guys. If you're going to be spending that type of salary on a driver at $11,300 price point, you want definite points out of that guy.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, normally we do the show after qualifying, but since qualifying hasn't happened, here's my thing with Martin Truex Jr. this week. If he qualifies high, so if he qualifies within the top 7, 8, I am off Martin Truex. If he qualifies in the middle, I might sprinkle 1 or 2 of them in there. If he qualifies late, then I definitely will increase his percentage owned in my own teams. But he just, I'm sorry. And as far as last year, he did finish at a decent 23rd. And his average finish is 23rd over 20 races. And I'm sorry, in last year he finished 15th in 2014. And then this year, to open up the season for the 2015 season at Daytona, he did have a decent finish. He finished 8th and started qualified 10th. So, but just based off of the last couple weeks of his driving, I'm not on the Martin Truex Jr. And mostly because of his price point.
Remember, he's also one of the guys that's in a backup car.
Yes,
like, they have had a couple days to work on it, but it's still that he's on the backup car. He already has he's already gotten caught up in the big one once this weekend.
Yeah.
So you have to think he's going to be driving probably a little bit more tentative, worried about that.
Yeah.
Since he's on his backup car, I agree with you. I would leave him in the garage as well. Just a play at his price point that I don't want to make this week. To be honest, I'm fine if you fade all the juniors. Dale, Truex, Sam Hornish, it might just be a day to fade juniors.
And it's just one of those things at that high price point. So you're talking $1,000 difference between Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Martin Truex Jr. 12,300, 11,300. So those two guys, if you're picking those guys for your team, you are basically locking yourself into saying these two guys have to either win the race,
2, 1, 3.
Just without a doubt, at points 1 and 2 for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a bad place to put your team, and it's not a place I want to be. So
avoid the junior this week at Daytona.
Yeah. Well, now that we've got the Who's Headed to the Garage segment wrapped up, it's time for everyone's favorite, the fan question segment. And this week's fan question is brought to us by Jack Burton and the Pork Chop Express. Hopefully some of you guys are getting our references here. Jack Burton wants to know, on a cold, dreary night in a bar, and someone asks you if you've paid your dues, what do you say? Well, I look at that fellow right in the eyes, And I tell them the check's in the mail. And on that note, no, we didn't have a viewer request. Hopefully we're answering all your questions on the show. If you have any, feel free to hit us up on Twitter, on YouTube, or on Facebook. We'll answer any questions you might have. And so we can get to that segment. Now is everybody's favorite segment of the show where we get to show you our lineups. We're the only show out there that shows you actual lineups that we submit that you can monitor in the contest. It's something really unique that I'm proud of here and at Fantasy Donks, and I think it's very helpful. At least the worst case, it keeps us honest as commentators.
And you guys can use bits and pieces. You can use the whole thing or not use any of it. It's up to you.
And on my current streak, you might just want to fade everyone on my team but one person because somebody's going to wreck. I seem to be on a wreck streak. Almost so much so that it's a statistical anomaly in my favor. That it's crazy that I've hit that many people. But let's go to my lineup. The first pick I have for you.
Very odd.
Yeah, it really is. Really. The first pick I have for you is Clint Boyer this week. No, I'm sorry. That's not my lineup. That was the old lineup. Yes, sorry.
That was the winner from last week.
Yes, that was the winner from last week. All right, now I'm on my lineup. My bad, guys. Thanks for your patience. Jeff Gordon's my first pick, as I told you earlier, at 11,700. Look, the reason why I'm on Jeff Gordon here is twofold. One, they jacked his price for who he is. I think he's overpriced. I think that's going to drive down the number of people that own him this weekend.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Also, I think off of 2 prior performances where he underperformed, I think people are going to be driven off of him. I think Jeff Gordon is one of those guys this week that can help you create a unique lineup. And because they squished everybody's prices together, it doesn't really hurt me to put him on my team. I still get to the lineup I want. The second pick I have for you this week on my lineup is Danica Patrick. She is 9,200, as we said before, and part of the Stewart Haas Racing team that I love so much. I follow that up with Tony Stewart at the 10.3. I then go ahead and sprinkle in a little Casey Mears at 8,700 and finish it off with Kyle Larson at 9,800. And yes, I'm back on the Larson train this week. I think he can get it done. He looks like he's running really good at Daytona in practices so far.
So this week we didn't even mention before the show who we were going to pick to each other. And the guy that we've just been given a hard time to majority of the time. But, Papa's been on him a little bit, but I'm also too on the Kyle Larson.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, a little curveball there for you. So, but I love the Casey Mears play. I personally am not on my team for the Lugnut anyways on Casey Mears, but I do have some Casey Mears this week. He did have a really good finish here last year, even though it was rain shortened. He's had really good history here too at the restrictor plate racing. So, and what was his price point?
He's only 8,700.
So I mean, $8,700. I mean, that's going to be one of those guys that you can plug and play in there to fill up an area that you need a lower tiered guy. So I definitely like that Casey Mears play.
Yeah, and see, I was able to put together a lineup for the Lugnut that I thought would probably stand on its own if my reads are right on ownership percentages. And that means that if my guys do what they're supposed to and avoid the big one, I should be in the top part of the cash. So,
it's NASCAR. Love the Danica Kirkpatrick play.
The Danica Kirkpatrick. I don't know why I always like to say it that way. I don't know. I've been this for years. All right, Lear, what's your lineup that you're rolling in the Lugnut?
All right, so this week my Lugnut lineup, as per usual, starting out with my burning rubber guys. First one's Kurt Busch. He is $11,400 this week. Again, like I said, he's down 1,000, but I think he's going to have a really, really good finish this week. As far as GPP, I think this guy's going to be one of those 40-50% owned guys. I don't know why I keep getting on the guys that everybody else is on, but at least in that fashion, at least I'll be right there at the same point as the other people in the contest and not trying to make up some points. So
yeah, I mean, look, a high ownership percentage doesn't matter if the rest of your team can create separation.
Yeah.
Right. It only matters if you're going chalk across the board and not differentiating your lineup. And even then, sometimes it doesn't matter because you might share the top prize. It's not as much money as you would have, but
right. But at least you're there.
Right. At least you're there. So, you know.
My second driver is Austin Dillon. I definitely like this guy this week. He had a good finish, top 10 last year, 2014. And also at his price point, I mean, he's 9,600, so he came up a little bit. But I'm definitely going to love him if he is qualified late, and I'm going to be all over the Austin Dillon. And then my next driver is Kyle Larson. Same thing with him. You know, he had a good finish here last year, and he's also another guy that's right around the $10,000 price point, 9,800. But I don't know. I got a feeling that one of those two boys is going to definitely have a really good finish this week. Top 5 for sure for one of the two, and then if not top 10 for both. So my fourth driver is Paul Menard, coming in at $9,500. Paul Menard has been a pretty good restrictor plate racer. Richard Childress Racing, and they've got I've got another driver on their team this week too, on my team. But you know, he had a pretty decent week last week, scoring in the 40 points. So I'm hoping that he's also kind of one of those late 20 qualifiers that has a chance to move up. And then my fifth and final is old Ryan Newman. He's also with RCR, but he's at 9,700. So you know, to round out my lineup, I needed a guy that, you know, he has a really good history as far as finishing here at Daytona. So and he's been doing it for a very long time. So a lot of these drivers have a lot of good history, except for, you know, Austin Dillon and Kyle Larson, which, you know, they're kind of the rookies still, even though they've been on the circuit for, you know, last year or two. So but you know, to get those 5 drivers in there underneath the salary, I have 0 salary remaining, so I burned all 50,000 of my salary this week. But the Kurt Busch play is the rationale behind that. So but let's get it done this week, boys. Daddy needs some money.
Right. Well, and as we always say every week when we wrap up our show, if Lear and I don't win any money, we hope you do. But we really hope it's us first.
For sure.
With that said, remember to like us on Facebook and favorite us on Twitter.
Subscribe on YouTube.
Subscribe on YouTube. Channel. Share us on all 3.
And most of all, FantasyDonks.com. That's your one-stop shop. Not only just for NASCAR, but all sports. And
making some good money playing baseball this year.
That's right. And
golf too.
Good recommendations out there. You know, good chance for you to have a free play out there and possibly win some money. So
yeah, just click on any of those referral links and you'll get free entries in the contest, and it helps support shows like this one that we do for you guys. And like I said, we're a unique show where we disclose even our lineups to you, because we want you guys seeing what we do and how we do it and why we do it. That's the main thing with daily fantasy, is that there's no real expert out there.
No.
Everybody's opinion is a little bit different. It's how you get to those opinions and how you get to the players you pick and the processes you want to go through. And that's what we strive to do here at Fantasy Donks. And hopefully we're doing that for you on the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR show.
And it's always fun to do too.
Oh, dude, I have a blast doing this show. Hopefully you guys have just as much fun watching it. And on that note, we want to wish you guys a happy 4th of July. Be safe. Don't destroy anything that you care about with the fireworks.
Stay away from the house.
Right. I'm Sean Big Papa Williams.
I'm Jamie the Learjet Lear.
And you guys have a wonderful 4th of July weekend.
Happy 4th of July weekend, everybody. God bless America.
Good luck, guys.